Today, I'd like to welcome back Simone Harding. Simone is a naturopath, kinesiologist, and she's an intuitive healer. Simone is one of Australia's leading lecturers in kinesiology. She's a past owner and founder of one of Australia's first large natural health clinics. And Simone now sees clients in both Sydney and Melbourne. Welcome back, Simone.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to be talking about working with change. So tell me, why is it the human condition that we're all so afraid of change?
Because we like to control.
True.
Well, not all of us. I think our mind likes to control. So we like to know what to expect, what's happening next, and probably lessen as many variables as possible.
Yeah, true. Like me today, because we thought of this topic, half an hour ago. Thinking, oh my God, what are we talking about? So we do like to control situations, don't we?
We like to have things preempted so we know what to say, how to act, what to do. And I think that's a lot about not wanting to be really vulnerable.
True. And so how does that come up in, a clinical setting for you? What do you see with your clients that, expresses that change is harming them in some way?
I think the most obvious thing is ill health for me, because I'm obviously a health practitioner. So a lot of people will come in with conditions that perhaps other people have tried to address and they haven't made sense, and then we start to look at it deeper. So someone might come in with anxiety, for example, or a stomach problem. So I'd say that's where they're first addressing the sense that something has to change, and their body's alerting them to that, and they can't feel settled. They might have insomnia or persistent thoughts or worries.
But they generally come with the anxiety, not necessarily realising it's about change in their life?
I think it can be a mixture of things. I think sometimes, if not most of the time, we have a sense that something has to change, and we may even know what that is, but then there's this other part of us that wants to deny that or forget that or pretend it's not so important. And
especially when it comes to our health.
Oh, when it comes to our health, or when it comes to lots of important changes, whether it be work, whether it be a relationship, whether it be change in terms of a lifestyle change, or a time of our life when we have different changes. So, menopause, for example, or when children leave home, or there's a whole range of things in our lives that indicates significant points which we have to then adapt or change.
And I suppose the point is that there is always change.
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing, is that the only thing that's guaranteed in life is actually change. But I think, especially in the Western world, we unfortunately go about thinking that the only thing that we want to have is certainty. We want certainty, and so certainty in our mind means that we want to do things knowing that it's been done before, knowing that we can do it, rather than being open to what's possible.
Because it makes us a bit more vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think vulnerability is the key in all of this, And I think too, depending on our first experiences of how we felt when we went into changing situations, that would then determine how we feel about change in the future.
Because then there's the people that love change as well, isn't there? That they're scared for anything to stay the same.
I think so. I mean, and they're almost to the other spectrum where it's probably not healthy, because if you're changing all the time, you don't actually have the ability to sustain something long enough to get the benefit out of it, the growth of it. Because there's always a beginning bit, a middle bit, and an end bit. So some of these people are constantly wanting to change because they're always running from the challenge of that middle bit where it gets a bit harder, or you start to doubt yourself.
So what can we do? What kinds of things can we, obviously we've all got to go through change. So what can we do to help us in these situations that we don't want?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, the most important thing is to listen to yourself. Listen really deep to yourself. And there's lots of levels and lots of layers and lots of parts of ourselves, but really listen deep to ourselves. And perhaps even do some writing around this. Do some subconscious writing. Get a piece of paper and pen, and maybe write at the top of the page, something's not okay. What is it? As a question. And then just see what comes up constantly for you. And so there might be something that says, I need to change my job. And so in that, you're looking at, okay, well, this keeps coming up as a constant. I need to change my job. And then you may think and ask yourself, why would I need to change my job? So you then start to look at the job itself. And so some people can make the mistake of saying, I need to change my job, and everything about my job is not okay. when that might not be the case. It might be just refinement necessary. So by asking the important questions about what feels okay in the work, what doesn't feel okay in the work, you'll be able to make some choices and decisions which are best suited to you.
And with something like a job, obviously that is still some sort of choice to make change. What about when change is thrust upon us?
I think what I often find in my personal life and in a lot of my clients' lives is that generally when change is thrust upon us, it's because we won't make the change. And the problem is that when we don't make the change, we end up with less choice.
Yep.
And we end up with less time to get our head around it, to get organised. And there's even a sense of then shock in that. I mean, an example of that would be when people don't prioritise their health with cancer. You know, so they see the cigarette packet and it says, you know, you can get lung cancer, throat cancer, you know, whatever cancer, and yet they keep smoking. They keep saying to themselves, I'll make that change. You know, I'll start next year, I'll start next Christmas, I'll start whenever. And unfortunately, when cancer comes, they don't have that choice anymore. They have to make that change now, and it's often a very radical change. And in that, everything in their life will change. How they work, how they connect to people, everything pretty much.
So are we all just procrastinators? Is that what it is?
I think procrastinators. I don't know if we're procrastinators or we just deny ourselves. I think we deny ourselves how we really feel or what we really want. I think that's where perpetual people that believe that it's not okay to desire that, or it's not easy, or it won't be something that I deserve, or a whole range of reasons why I think we don't often ask ourselves what it is that we really want or what isn't okay in our life. I think we get so used to putting up with things. I think as human beings in the modern world, we get so used to putting up things, and we also use other things to make us believe that things are okay. So alcohol, we work really hard and we don't like our job, but that's okay because on the weekend we can go and get smashed. And everything is forgotten. Literally everything is forgotten.
Isn't there also this place that our education system makes us people that become experts on everybody else, but we're not actually experts on ourselves? We don't really look inside. We don't really, we're just looking outside all the time.
Well, I think that's where, sometimes it can be positive to look outside of ourselves because there can be information and knowingness that's happened to someone else and we can learn from that. But I think, unfortunately, I agree. There's a huge gap there. Whereas where is the individual in that? And can we relate that back to our own life? And where is the reflection within the changes that we need to make? Yeah.
Well, so many of the things that we think we should do are really the voices of mum and dad and society and so on. And how many of us are really in touch with what we want to do?
Well, I think that's really important. And that's where midlife crisis often comes up. And, that's another point where sometimes people can't literally get themselves to work because they realise, I never want to do this career. I can do it. It's not hard. It's easy for me, but there's a part of me that every day just cannot get myself out of bed in the morning. And unfortunately, we then have antidepressants, don't we? Antidepressants that enable us to numb ourselves enough to actually keep maintaining and doing. And then, it's harder than just, changing your work because then you've got bills that you have to pay. You've got a home, you've got a mortgage, you've got a family, you've got all those commitments, you've got your boat or whatever it is if you're lucky enough to have it, that you feel then compelled to keep up and maintain. So making that change at that point in your life is very difficult.
People feel trapped in their lives, don't they?
I think they do feel trapped in their life. I mean, fortunate enough, I think children today are offered more choice. I think they're offered more choice in what's possible and how they can see their lives. But certainly, I think they still fall in the trap of that,
Yeah. So what's the biggest take-home message people can have if they're facing some change at the moment?
I think a really good question to ask yourself is not just what would be the worst thing that could happen if I made the change, because that's what often people do. They think, what's the worst thing that would happen if I made this change? I think it's really important to ask yourself, what would be the worst thing that could happen if I didn't make this change?
Good question.
Very good.
Because from there, that then re-evaluates everything because people don't often think about that.
So if people want to come and see you for your healing and kinesiology, where can they find more information on you?
So you can go to my website, simoneharding.com, and that has everything on there.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
My pleasure.
I think everyone can relate to having to change something in their lives, so it's really good information to help people have a bit of a think about what they have to do.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Simone.
Thank you.